Hello everyone. In this part, the second part, we are going to see how the urinary system is involved in homeostasis and also some issues associated with the dysfunctioning of the urinary system. Now, the urinary system interacts with many systems in our body, right? Virtually all the system in our body. Let's start with the cardiovascular system. The kidneys produce renin. That renin is going to help in maintaining the proper blood pressure in our system, right? It is also the renin release is also going to play a role in maintaining an internal balance in terms of water, salt, and also ions. For the digestive system, the liver is going to release bunch of urea, right? That urea is discarded from our body through the urinary system. Okay, that's an example of how the digestive system is associated with the urinary system in terms of maintaining a relatively internal balance. How about the muscular system? The muscular system is going to use creatine phosphate, right? That creatine phosphate, after the phosphate is released, goes into ATP formation for muscle contraction. You're going to eventually have creatine that is released. That creatine is going to be metabolized into creatinine. That creatinine has to be discarded from the body, and the urinary system is the one that takes care of that. Urinary system plays a very important role in water salt balance and ions. These ions, many of them are involved in the functioning of the nervous system. How about the respiratory system? To maintain an internal pH that is stable, the the respiratory system is going to kick carbon dioxide out, right? And that carbon dioxide plays a very important role in acid base. But we also know that the urinary system plays a very important role in the acid base balance in our body. The kidney release renin that is now going to act on aldosterone, and therefore, that is now going to act, on the adrenal glands that are going to respond by releasing aldosterone. So that aldosterone is going to cause the system to actually work on the blood pressure, which means that the endocrine system is actually working alongside with the urinary system here to maintain a relatively stable internal environment. Finally, the sweat glands are going to release some chemicals in the sweat, right? That are going to play a very important role in the water salt balance and also in the release of some urea. So, this is how, to some extent, the urinary system and particularly the kidney is going to participate in homeostasis. But let's take a look at some details here. So, in terms of excretion, the kidneys are going to excrete all the waste in the form of urine. They're going to play a very important role in maintaining the water salt balance. How so? By regulating how the aquaporins, which control the movement of water in and out of the cell. It's also going to control the movement of sodium, potassium, bicarbonate, which are all ions, and magnesium. So potassium and the sodium, for instance, they play a very important role in the functioning of our nervous system, while bicarbonate plays a very important role in the pH, right? And also as a buffer. The reabsorption of salt and water in the kidney is going to allow us to actually maintain sodium and chloride ion, right? Aldosterone is going to play a very important role in causing reabsorption as needed. The juxtaglomerular apparatus is going to play a very important role in reabsorption of ions and water. You have renin. What I have not mentioned so far is the antidiuretic hormone. Antidiuretic hormone, ADH, is released in the brain, right? The atrial nitriuretic hormone that is released by the heart, okay? These two hormones actually are very important in controlling the water salt balance in our system. Now, let's take a look at the juxtaglomerular apparatus. In the juxtaglomerular apparatus, renin that is released by the kidney is going to target the juxtaglomerular apparatus right here that is actually going to be involved in the renin angiotensin system, which is essential in controlling blood pressure. Okay, let me repeat that. The renin that is released by the kidney is going to act on the juxtaglomerular apparatus that regulate the renin angiotensin system that controls blood pressure. Now, in terms of absorption and excretion, or reabsorption and or excretion, let's take a look at this. So we have here the cortex area and the glomerular area. Now, the major filtration first happens here in the glomerulus that is located in the cortex area, right? Then we're going to have some reabsorption that is going to happen here, and excretion is also going to happen there. Now, here as well, we're going to have some reabsorption and excretion that is located there. Now, zooming in the medullary segment here, what do we see is happening in the medullary segment? We have reabsorption of water, okay? We have in actually the descending loop, water is going to be reabsorbed from the loop, while sodium chloride is going to be absorbed from the urine to the tissue so that the salt, the sodium chloride can remain in our tissues. But in the glomerular too, when we look at the collecting ducts, we have reabsorption of water from the collecting ducts, so from the urine to the tissues, right? So this is how some water is saved and stay in our tissues. So the loop is going to play a very important role in reabsorption of water and salt. Okay? In the loop, the collecting ducts, okay? NAH, which is a hormone that is produced by the heart, right, is going to allow reabsorption of water salt. The diuretic hormones are also going to play a role in the reabsorption, right, Actually, no, correct this. The diuretic hormone is going to play a role in the reabsorption of water, while the ANH is going to play a role in the excretion of water. There we go, in the excretion of water. Okay, when there is high blood pressure, for that pressure to go down, the water is going to be released and is going to be sent out to the urine, so that the urine can be more diluted than concentrated. But when we don't have when we have a low blood pressure, we are going to save water, which is when ADH is going to come into play, antidiuretic hormone, right? Now, you have some substances that are called diuretic. The diuretic are the substances that are going to cause you to actually lose a lot of water. You are losing a lot of water by shutting down the production of ADH, antidiuretic hormone, right? Some chemicals are able to do this, and they are said to be diuretics. This is alcohol, right? And caffeine. When you drink a lot of alcohol and caffeine, you are peeing more than normal. All right. So the antidiuretic hormone, which is released by the brain, is going to play a tremendous role in controlling the concentration of the urine and the volume of urine. Whenever you release ADH, right? Whenever you release ADH, your urines are going to be very concentrated. When you are not releasing ADH, your urine are not going to be very concentrated, right? At night time, typically your amount of ADH is going to increase, right? As you increase the amount of ADH that is produced, your urine formation is going to decrease, which cause you to use the bathroom less when you are actually sleeping, right? So now, when the body fluid are too concentrated, you need water in the tissues, all right? So water concentration in the blood is going to decrease when there is too much when the body fluid is too concentrated. The water in the blood is going to decrease, right? Because that water needs to go in the tissues, right? That water that leaves the blood for the tissues is going to cause an increase in the osmotic pressure, right? And that osmotic pressure is sensed by osmoreceptors, right? Which actually is going to cause the hypothalamus to release ADH. That ADH that is released is going to actually cause flow in the body, go in the kidney, and cause the kidney to actually increase the reabsorption of water. By increasing the reabsorption of water, this is going to cause water to flow in the tissues, right? It flows in the tissues, and the urine is going to become more concentrated, right? The urine volume is going to decrease, and the water is going to be conserved. Now, if the body fluids is too diluted, the opposite action is going to happen. That opposite action is going to be to, rather than retain water, to actually release water, right? Decreasing the osmotic pressure, right? The osmoreceptors are going to cause the hypothalamus to stop releasing antidiuretic hormone. By reducing the amount of antidiuretic hormone, you are actually causing the distal tubules to start now collecting the distal tubules are going to decrease the water reabsorption, right? Which is going to cause the water to go from the tissues the to the collecting ducts, and from the collecting duct it goes in the urine, and the urine is going to be to have a high volume. Okay, so in terms of acid balance fluid, the pH in our blood varies between 7.35 and 7.45 with an average of 7.4. That's the normal condition. Below 730, below 735, we are in acidosis, right? Okay. While above 745, we are in alkalosis, which are both conditions that are not acceptable to the body. So the body has to create a system by which an internal pH is maintained at 7.4. For that, you have a constant movement from hydrogen ion combining with bicarbonate to forming carbonic acid, right? That carbonic acid actually can be disassociated, right? Dissociated, and when it's dissociated, actually you have a combination with OH ion, right? By combining with OH ion, now we have a bicarbonate and water. So you always have this going back and forth between the formation of bicarbonate and no formation of bicarbonate, right? So you always have that movement, that back and forth between hydrogen ions that are produced, or water that is produced, causing actually the bicarbonate ion to actually play a central role in maintaining the proper pH in our body. The respiratory system plays a very important role. Remember that carbon dioxide circulates in our body in three forms: in form of carbaminohemoglobin, in forms of carbon dioxide gas, and in forms of bicarbonate, right? When bicarbonate combines with hydrogen ion, it forms carbonic acid. That carbonic acid can dissociate into water and carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is released in the lungs and it's kicked out of the body, right? So we are actually, whenever we have a lot of carbon dioxide in our system, we are going to have a lot of carbonic acid. That carbonic acid is going to dissociate, right? Causing hydrogen ions to be released. And these hydrogen ions that are released is going to cause a decrease in the pH, which is a bad news, right? That's why in the respiratory system, we have to kick carbon dioxide out of our system. Then here you do have how the kidney is actually controlling the balance between bicarbonate in the tubules and the blood capillaries, with the bicarbonate going from the tubules to the water, right? And hydrogen ions, to the water, to the blood capillaries, and hydrogen ions leaving the blood capillaries to go in the kidney tubules. And this presence of hydrogen ions in the tubules is going to cause hydrogen ions to be in presence of NH3. That NH3 now combined with hydrogen ion is going to form ammonia. That ammonia is what is found in the urines. Now, the The urinary system does not go without experiencing some dysfunctioning. This is when we are going to dive into some health issues. Some of the health issues are, for instance, nephritis. Nephritis, it's an inflammation of the nephrons, which are the filtration units in the kidney, right? Glomerulonephritis, it's when the glomerular segment of the nephron is inflamed, right? That glomerular, that glomerulonephritis can be acute or it can be chronic, right? Based on really how much inflammation you have, this is going to determine the the severity of the nephritis or the glomerulonephritis, right? The acute glomerulonephritis is going to result in an abnormal immune reaction. This actually lasts about 1 to 3 weeks after an infection, and that can cause you to feel some fatigue. So typically, the infection that leads to acute glomerulonephritis does not start with the infection of the kidney. It always starts as a urinary tract infection or some other infection, and then eventually progresses and reaches the nephrons. And when that happens, then that can become a problem. And now, when the nephrons are now attacked, these nephrons are going to inflame and they're not going to fulfill their function anymore, right? So in general, one is going to receive an antimicrobial treatment to get rid of this problem and some pain medication, right? Now, you have some complex deposits that can occur and block the glomerulus. Now, then you have a condition that is more chronic, the chronic glomerulonephritis. This is a progressive disease where the nephrons are going to shut down one by one until really the condition is irreversible, right? So this is basically when we can reach kidney failure, right? So that prolonged inflammation is not a good thing. Now, what are the parts of the nephrons and what are their functions? So, in terms of the nephron, we are going to have the renal capsule. In the renal capsule, we're going to have the glomerulus, right? And the glomerulus, its job is going to do the filtration, right? Filtration of water and dissolved substance that are found in the plasma, right? The glomerular tubule is going to receive actually the filtrate, and that filtrate is the primary urine, right? In the capsule, actually the capsule, we're going to have the urine that is going to sit, the primary urine that is going to sit in this whole area. Then we have the renal tubules. In the renal tubules, we're going to have the proximal tubules, the distal tubules, the descending loop, and the ascending loop, right? They're all going to have different jobs to accomplish. The proximal tubules are going to do reabsorption of glucose, amino acid, creatine, lactic acid, right? Citric acid, uric acid, and ascorbic acid, many ions, including phosphate, sulfate, calcium, potassium, sodium, and all of these components are reabsorbed via a type of transport system that is called an active transport system that requires input of energy, right? You need to spend some ATP here for this reabsorption to occur, right? You're going to have reabsorption of proteins by a process called endocytosis, which is also a process that is active process requiring ATP. We have reabsorption of water by osmosis and reabsorption of chloride ions and other ions by electrochemical attraction. And then we are going to also have a secretion of some of the drugs that we take, including penicillin, right? We have secretion of chemicals such as histamine, creatinine, that is a byproduct of creatine, right? And hydrogen ions are also excreted. Now, the descending loop is going to do reabsorption of water by osmosis, while the ascending loop is going to do reabsorption of sodium ion and chloride ion. Remember when we talked about the NaCl, right? The NaCl, okay? And this reabsorption occurs via active transport. Then finally, we are going to have that the distal tubules are going to do reabsorption of sodium ions by active transport, reabsorption of water by osmosis, and active secretion of hydrogen ion. Okay, active secretion means that the ions are going to be secreted with expense of energy, right, in the form of ATP. Okay, and you're going to have the secretion of potassium ions, and that is going to be by active process and also by electrochemical attraction. And then finally, but not least, you're going to have that in the collecting duct, you're going to have some level of water reabsorption by osmosis. It is reduced, but it does happen. All right. In the chronic glomerulonephritis, this is basically kidney failure, basically. All right. In here, you are going to have an inflammation of glomerular capillaries, right? This condition is going to be progressive, degenerative, right? And at this point, you're really going to have a kidney transplant at some point, right? So what are the symptoms? Hypertension, presence of proteins in the urea, presence of blood in the urea, dark urine, elevated blood level, and blood urea nitrogen, BUN. So blood urea nitrogen, BUN. And also presence of creatinine in the blood, decrease of proteins in the blood. So whenever you have a discard of bunch of the plasma blood in the urine, that is sign of kidney failure. So at the end of the day, you're going to have a kidney failure, which is actually a bad news. I don't even want to talk about it. All right. So whenever there is kidney failure, typically a patient will have to undergo dialysis, right? What we call hemodialysis 3 times a week, right? And eventually, if possible, receive a kidney transplant. Now, kidney stone, it's another phenomenon that happen, and the kidney stone are because of the uric acid, right, that combine with other salts to form crystals. And these crystals, once they start forming, they never reverse, they can only grow, right? This This causes what we call kidney stones, which is really, really excruciating pains, very, very bad condition. So typically, the only thing that can be done is to really flush the tubules, and so to hope that these kidneys are going to pass that these kidney stones. But the unfortunate thing is that when we start forming kidney stones, it can only go worse. But sometimes it gets solved, it gets dissolved. So 60% of kidney stones are typically going to pass, while others are really going to be a major issue. Some can be removed surgically. Okay. And forming kidney stones, it's actually inherited condition in many families, right? What can cause kidney stones? You just using a lot of supplements can be an issue, right? Excess vitamin D, when you don't produce properly the urines, right? Urinary tract infections can cause kidney stone. These are some examples of kidney stone. You see, they are not small. They are huge. Now, obviously, this picture is zoomed, but kidney stone are pretty huge. And here we have a patient who is undergoing hemodialysis, waiting to receive a kidney at some point. So this is where our discussion is going to stop. Thank you for your attention. Bye now.